Hey, Alicia, I'm just making you a quick screencast because I thought it would be easier for me to show you some things that you asked about in your reflection. I'll just mention, first of all, great job in this activity. It looks like you're really doing the detailed work of looking closely at your master shell and really figuring out what you need to do to get in there and make things ready for the summer and what's already there, what you need to add. And so you're exactly where you need to be in this process right now. You had asked about making checklists and how to create them. So I wanted to talk with you about two ways to approach this. So generally what Eric and I do in our online classes is we just create, we have more of like a narrative, I guess, where we spell things out for students um, in our directions. But at the top, we basically take all of those main items and we just use an abbreviated version of them. And we create, usually what we put next to them is a little empty blank box. So we use that just from the bullet list. I couldn't find that in my bullet list, so I just used a check mark. But to answer your questions about whether students can actually check those off, they cannot. We tell students at the beginning of the semester that we expect them to print out the actual agenda and the checklist, and that we want them to just manually go through and check it. Now, there is a more technical way that you can do this to create a checklist where students can check things off in D2L, and so I'll just show you that very quickly. So here we are in the Essentials training site. Where you would find the checklist tool is under Activities, but it is turned off by default because a lot of people don't use it. And so as a course site administrator, you have to go in and turn it on. So here you go into your course admin, and then you would go down to the very bottom here. I think it's falling off my screen page, but you can see Tools right here. You're going to click on Tools. I clicked on the wrong thing. Let's see, Tools. And you will see that you have all of these additional tools in your course. A lot of them are turned on automatically and a lot of them are turned off. And so you can see the checklist tool right here is currently turned off in our class. So I will turn it on. And then I don't know if I need to save that. I don't think so. And then I go back into my course. And hopefully the checklist tool will show up here now. And so you can create a new checklist and that you can create them in the content area of the course. So what Eric and I used to do was for every week that we had in our class, we would create our little checklist, like the one that I showed you, but then we would also create this kind of fancier checklist where we would build out those same items in here. And then it would show up as an actual checklist that students can click on. Now, the tricky thing about this is that students have to go to the checklist. When you create that kind of checklist in D2L, it doesn't just show up as an item on this page. It might show up down here, but students have to click on it separately outside of your agenda. And so some people would like to use that checklist instead of having an agenda in the content module area. Some people like to use the checklist in addition to having it in their kind of module, in their modules. We dropped using it. We had used it for a while. We stopped using it because we found it was a redundancy and students weren't using it a whole lot. And it was hard for us every time we folded a semester over into the next semester to remember to update the dates both on our agenda and in our checklist. And so it was ending up creating more confusion for our students. So we got rid of it. But if you do decide you want to use it, you can go to this course. It's called the D2L Instructor Tutorials. You can search for this. You should have access of it. You should have access to it. And if you go to the D2L Instructors Tutorial and you go in the course material, you can find under the activities module a section on checklists. So it'll tell you what the checklist tool is. It'll help you figure out how to actually create a checklist. So you can click on those instructions, you can read about it more. So those resources are out there, but when we say checklist, we don't mean anything fancy, just kind of a clear summary of the agenda for students so that they can take a quick look and say, okay, this is what I need to do this week. These are the due dates that I have. Maybe they can copy them down in their planner or something, just so that they know what's expected of them. So I hope that answers your question. Um, and the other questions you had was about late work. That's an excellent question. How do we handle late work? I think your in-class policy works fine. If that's working for you and it's working for your students and you've had success with it, I think you can duplicate that online. I do like to suggest that people have some wiggle room for late assignments in online classes. The ethos of our online learning department is very much one of student success and meeting students where they are and helping them. Not so much hand holding, but just kind of one that has a little bit more empathy for students and a lot of the struggles that our online students especially face. Lots of times our students are taking online classes just because they have more on their plates. They can't get to campus. Maybe they're at home with kids, or maybe they have, really a couple different jobs outside of school. Sometimes they are just up against a little bit more. And so we definitely want to help those students succeed in whichever way we can, that also respects our needs as a teacher. And so I think any kind of wiggle room you can have in there is great. Eric and I probably tend to lean more on the really flexible side with late work. And that's only because we're sort of moving a little bit away from points grading and a little bit more toward contract grading, where basically we're focused more on have students met the learning outcomes by the end of the semester and not so much have they met the deadlines and what were the points that they got for certain assignments. And so that's just kind of like a pedagogical change that we're moving toward right now. But we understand that that's not a policy that would work for all teachers. We also have the luxury, because we do so much administrative work, that we don't have as many students. I understand if somebody has 100 students, they have 5 different sections, that it just is too overwhelming to have stuff coming in all the time. And so I think create a policy with some wiggle room in it. Maybe you want to hold students accountable by having some kind of loss of points for late work, but definitely create the wiggle room. Our students online are going to need it. They're going to need to know that you're serious about the structure of the course and the deadlines, but that we're also human and we're going to understand if they need to turn things in late once in a while. So that would be my advice on that. And I hope that answers your questions. Please reach out if you have any others.